Have you ever cracked open the New Testament and had that moment of, wait a minute, why are there four different books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all telling the same story about Jesus? I mean, it can feel a little repetitive. But the reason we have these four accounts is actually one of the most brilliant parts of the whole design.
So, yeah, why not just one, One definitive biography to rule them all. Why give us four different versions that sometimes highlight different things? It's a fantastic question, and honestly, the answer just deepens our whole understanding of who Jesus really was.
Here's probably the best way to think about it. Imagine the Holy Spirit is like a movie director, filming a huge, world-changing event. A great director wouldn't just use one camera, right? No way. They'd set up four of them. You'd have one camera right up close, getting the intimate details, another one way back, capturing the epic wide shot, a third might be focused just on the crowd's reaction. Now, are any of those cameras contradicting each other? Of course not. They're complementing each other to give you this full 3D picture of what actually happened.
Okay, so to start, let's zoom in on the first three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They're so similar in how they tell the story, they're actually grouped together. This is what we call the synoptic view.
And that word, synoptic, is just perfect. It comes from two Greek words, syn, which means together, and opsis, meaning to see. So it literally means to see together. And that's exactly what Matthew, Mark, and Luke do. They let us see the life of Jesus from a shared viewpoint. You'll even notice they often tell the same stories, sometimes using the exact same phrasing.
And you can see their shared structure right here. All three of these Gospels follow the same basic roadmap. They start with Jesus' ministry in Galilee, then they follow him to his ministry in Judea, and it all culminates in his final days in Jerusalem. It's a common framework, but what's so amazing is what each author decides to build on top of that framework.
So here's the big question. If they share an outline, how do they end up being so different? Well, it's because each gospel was written for a very specific audience with a very specific purpose in mind. Think of them as three artists, all painting a portrait of the same person, but each one is choosing to highlight completely different features.
This table just breaks it down so perfectly. Look at Matthew. He's writing to a Jewish audience, so he presents Jesus as the king. His keyword is fulfilled, because he's constantly connecting Jesus back to Old Testament prophecy. Then you've got Mark, writing for the action-oriented Romans. He portrays Jesus as the servant, and his keyword is immediately, because it's all about action. And then Luke, he's writing for the Greeks, and he shows Jesus as the perfect man, often using the title Son of Man. So you've got a king, a servant, and a perfect man, three crucial facets of one incredible person.
Okay, so how do they actually pull this off? Well, the evidence is woven right into the fabric of the text itself. It's all about the details they choose to include, and just as importantly, the details they leave out. Let's dig into some examples.
So Matthew starts his book with a genealogy, a long list of names. Now, to us, that might seem a little boring, but for his Jewish audience, this was everything. If you were going to claim to be the Messiah king, you had to prove your royal credentials. You had to show your receipts. So Matthew meticulously traces Jesus' family tree, all the way back to King David and Abraham, establishing his legal right to the throne right from verse 1.
Mark, on the other hand, presents Jesus as a servant. And a servant doesn't need a fancy genealogy, right? What matters is what they do. This single quote from Mark's gospel basically summarizes his entire book. Jesus came to serve, not to be served.
And to really hammer home this portrait of a servant on a mission, Mark's gospel moves at a breakneck pace. It's like an action film. He uses the word immediately or straight away constantly, just jumping from one event to the next to the next. He completely leaves out the long sermons you find in Matthew because he's laser-focused on what Jesus did.
Luke's portrait is different yet again. He was writing for a Greek culture that really valued the idea of the ideal man. So Luke presents Jesus as the perfect, compassionate Son of Man. He goes way out of his way to include these incredible stories of Jesus' compassion for people on the margins of society, the non-Jews, women, sinners, the poor. It's a powerful portrait of perfect humanity.
Now, this is where it gets absolutely incredible, because this detail solves a huge theological puzzle. See, in the Old Testament, the royal line that came through King David's son Solomon had a blood curse placed on it. God said that no descendant of a certain King Jeconiah could ever sit on the throne. So, how could Jesus be king? It's a massive problem. But the Gospels give us this brilliant solution. Matthew gives us Joseph's genealogy, that's Jesus' legal father, which secures his legal right to the throne. But Luke gives us Mary's genealogy, which goes back to David through a different son, Nathan. This is Jesus' biological bloodline, and it has no curse on it. So through the virgin birth, Jesus gets both the legal right to rule and an uncursed bloodline. It is just wow.
So when you put all these different perspectives together, you don't get contradiction, you get completion. What you're left with is this rich, fourfold testimony to one of history's most significant figures.
I love this one analogy I heard. Think of it like a string quartet. Each instrument is playing a different part, different notes, but when you listen to them together, they create one beautiful, harmonious piece of music. The Gospels aren't fighting each other. They're designed to be heard together.
So what we have is the king, the servant, and the perfect man. And of course, John's Gospel, which is a whole other explainer for another day, presents Jesus as the divine Son of God. Each angle gives us depth and color that the others don't. Without Matthew, we might miss Jesus' authority. Without Mark, his urgency. Without Luke, his deep compassion. Together, they create a portrait that is so much richer and more complete than any single account could ever be.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? When you're trying to understand someone whose life literally reshaped human history, is one perspective ever really enough? The very fact that there are 4 Gospels suggests that to truly see someone this significant, you have to look from every possible angle.